when I look at my life and how I grew up, most people know me, and I've told this to some of you, but I was, my parents immigrated to Sweden. I grew up in a family. We lived in an apartment. I was a very short kid, and that was great when you were small because you were fast and stuff. But once you start hitting puberty, being short and chubby was not always the best kind of combination. And I vividly remember I was in Macedonia, where I'm originally from, and I was sitting in my grandfather's lap, and he was like feeling my belly, and he was like, "You're so fat," or something like that, he said. And I know he didn't mean anything bad. He loved me, I love him, but that really hit hard with me. So after that, I started training a lot, and I stopped eating. They even called my parents and asked if I didn't got any food at home. So I started counting calories and things like that, and I think I was like 11 or 12, and it was not a good thing. Very bad relationships with food. But anyways, then I got into, I grew a little bit older and started to, understand that you can eat well and train and be healthy. You don't have to, have that relationship with food. Being short and chubby was one thing, but being short and skinny wasn't really better. So especially when you wanted to, attract girls and friends and stuff like that. So those were moments that I learned to work on my personality a lot, to learn how to, speak with other people, and to learn to make people feel good. And I would say probably from 15 to 25, I would mold very easily into the group I was in, because I had this need to be liked. I don't know if you ever felt that. I had this need to be liked, I had this need to be loved. And I've noticed that for people who don't know, I'm doing a podcast, and I've interviewed some people that have come very far in their field, in real estate, sports, martial arts, things like that. And it's crazy when you see that people will do almost anything just to be loved. They would sacrifice their whole fucking life to become an Olympic medalist so they can get the approval of their father, their mother, their friends. And then they realize that once you get there, it doesn't really matter, that approval anymore. And then you still have to do the work. And with that said, I'm not saying that don't go after your dreams and goals, but the approach and why you're doing it, I think, should not be to get the approval of somebody else, because once you get there, you still have to do the work. And I think all of us probably see that, and if you look at many successful people in our industry, they also become very successful working hard to get the approval, and then you still have to do the work. So those are just a couple of stories. And when I look at my life and ask myself, who would I be without failure? I think I would still be that, person that was looking for other people's approval, that person that did things and trying to accomplish things just to get, to be popular or be liked. But because of the pain that I felt in my life, I've been able to, combat and challenge these things. And I encourage you, when you have a moment in your life, to ask yourself this question: who would you be without failure? And also to challenge yourself and challenge those questions. And we're going to talk more about, being happy and being successful and what that means, because I'm very passionate about that subject. Because I see so many people that are successful but not happy. So I'm trying to find out, what's the path for that. And as I'm exploring that, I'm trying to meet with other people that are very good at that, so we can share that with others. So this is going to sting a little bit. So before we go into the system that I'm been using for a little bit now, and I think it will be helpful for some of you, is some of the reason why we don't get what we want. And I want to talk about that because there's so many people that go through life and wonder why they don't get what they want. And I think that's sad, especially we're here, we're very well supported. Most of us, can pay our bills, and we're healthy. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to get what we want. So as I told you, this is based on my research over the years. And for people who know me, I've been doing martial arts since I was 6. So you get to meet, in martial arts, you get to meet a lot of interesting people. And there's a spiritual aspect to it as well. So you get to talk to many people that have challenging self and are in many different ways, and you learn a lot from that. I took it to the next level by deciding to start a podcast and interview people to ask them these questions, to learn and to share with others. And it's interesting that there's a team. There's a team. A lot of people experience the same thing. And I think that's something that we sometimes forget. When we have a problem, we think we're the only one that has that problem, and it hurts so much because we're living in here. And once we look up and talk about it with somebody else, like, oh, I felt the same way. And once we have the courage to be vulnerable, it helps us so much. So I think one thing, and this is something that we're going to use today, the reason why I think most people don't get what they want is because they don't really know what the exact next step is. Either you're thinking too big, like, hey, I want to become a billionaire, or I want to become a world medalist, or I want to do a tube, or I want to travel to 100 countries. And then we have this joke in my city where there was one of our friends. He was going to the local shop to buy a fitness magazine, and they're like, we're out. Okay, I'll just have a bag of chips and a Coca-Cola. And that, we're always joking with him, but it's kind of the next step sometimes. When we don't know what to do, we get back to our old habits. So in my experience, most people think either they have this massive goal and it just gets too daunting, or they overanalyze the next step. Like for people that I've written a book, and most people, a lot of people ask me, like, how do you write a book? Yeah, you just write like 2 pages a day or 2.5 pages a day. Oh, but what if it isn't good? What if that sentence is not correct? And you start questioning yourself, and I don't know if you're in this mode sometimes in your life, and you're trying to get all the answers instead of being in action, and you end up not doing that next step. So with what we're trying to accomplish today is just to be able to know what the exact next step is. And even when we don't know, have something that is called faith, right? That if I do something today, something will help me tomorrow to get a little bit closer to what I want without questioning too much. And faith can be many things. And if you're coming from a sports background like me, you can train as hard as you want, but you can never guarantee that you're going to win that competition. There's if you're Usain Bolt and you're like you run a second faster than anybody else, you can kind of predict it. But in a sport like karate, it's so small details. Sometimes even the number, like if you go to, let's say, a world championship, there's like 70 or 80 people in your category, in your weight class. Out of them, there's probably 15 people who has at some point taken a medal at either European or World Championships. So and after every round you lose, the half goes out. It's like that type of system. So if you lose, you're out. So that means that you're going to be fighting somebody who has medaled maybe in the first round, definitely probably in the second or third round. It's very hard to predict. So when you go back to train, if you have that in your mind all the time, you're going to have so much analysis paralysis, right? Because you're up against all those people. And I think this is very relatable to what we are doing, going on listing appointments and meeting with buyers, because we're in a pool of very successful people. So that sooner or later, you're going to be competing against somebody that's really good. And if that gets into your head, you stop doing things. So this is one of the main things, and we're going to talk more about that and how we can combat that. The second thing, and this is something that makes me very, very sad, and this is so normal, that people stop showing up for themselves. And what's even worse is that we can all relate to this, and we give ourselves our own excuses to why we should stop, right? I'm not saying if it's wrong, of course you're gonna stop, but a lot of times we're like, this doesn't work. You tell yourself, right, this doesn't work. Or no, I don't wanna do this anymore. Or I'm not getting any results going to the gym. I'm not getting any results door knocking, whatever it might be, you know. And this is the only thing this is you giving yourself an excuse to stop with something that's important to you. That's the one and only thing. And how do we combat that? That's something obviously that's something very difficult, but I think it also comes down to faith, and it also comes down to being a person that is doing the things you said you're going to do long after the excitement of that commitment is gone. Because we're all very excited in January. Oh, I'm gonna sell real estate for this amount of money, I'm gonna travel to this place, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and then reality hits and you have 3 canceled escrows and your friend's in town, so you get drunk, and then you're like, oh, nah, this was not a good idea. I'm gonna change what I set out to do, right? Change it if it's for something better, but I think a lot of times we're giving ourselves the excuse. And the only person that is hurting from that is ourselves, because what happens with us when we constantly give ourselves an out? We stop trying, right? Or we say it's okay. It's okay if I set this goal. It's okay if I don't reach it. We hear it all the time. Yeah, set a high goal, and then if you don't reach it, it's okay because you came so far. And that's okay to have that conversation after, but not when you're in it. Like, you can't say we're gonna climb to Mount Everest and then, but it's okay if we don't. Like, it's okay if we just hang on the cliff and die. You can change that if everything changes, the weather changes, you have to make a decision. Don't be stupid. But I think sometimes we're not showing up for ourselves long enough, and that's sad. And we're expecting results too soon because we might compare ourselves to other people. I'm sure you all do that all the time, and I think that's good in some way to compare ourselves to others. But I think it's also important to know that we're all unique. We all have different stories, and we all have different skill sets, and we're all in different time zones, so to speak. We all mature in different ways. But what we can control is showing up for ourselves. That is something that we can all control and make a conscious decision to do. A lot of people are actually afraid of change. I don't know if you are. Like, if to become the person that is achieving the things that you want, it's pretty hard, right? You got to shed that skin, and you have to evolve, and you're gonna, maybe you're gonna change how you think about important things like your mom and dad told you was correct. Or for example, for me, I realized like moving to another country was a very big change for me. You know, I'm very close to my family, and it was very, very scary, and it still is very scary, you know, to be in a different place and to be by yourself and understand and being in that room with your, I don't know if you've been too long with yourself, but you get, either you get crazy or you start like finding out some truths about yourself. And I think this is also one of the most important things that I think you should consider in your own life. If you have goals that are, you know, big, and you realize that you have to become another person or grow as a person, that I think that's the hardest part. Because, for example, a lot of people want a great partner in their life, and they start making a list of everything that they want with that partner, and then you got to ask yourself the question, am I the person who can attract that person, right? Or there's so in our job, like everybody wants a listing, right? Or anybody wants open an escrow, but are you that person? And that's the hard question. And are you willing to do all the things we discussed in order to, you know, change? And I think we're always changing, and if we're not changing, we're gonna eventually die, right? In a way, it's grow or die. It doesn't have to be anything negative. It could be something exciting, and becoming a better version of yourself. I think one of the hardest things for me and that I've realized in my life is I've changed a lot the last 5 years of being here, and you notice that more and very easily if you're not from LA and you go and meet your family, you haven't seen them for a while, and you meet your old friends, and then you realize some things have changed with you, hopefully not to the worse. You can also change for the worse, but you still have that the core values of who you are. And I've seen that as well with a lot of people coming from especially Sweden. People, you can change, but a lot of people also change to the worse because you don't have the best role models around you. And that also comes back to the core values. Always remember your core values. That's what I'm trying to do. So what's the solution? I'm curious to hear like what your thoughts are before we move forward. What do you guys think is the solution to combat? Do you relate to those three things, and is there a solution that you have come up with that you would like to share with us today?
Yeah, I think making your goals public or having accountability partners is big for one of the things you mentioned, because if you just keep it to yourself, it's very easy to drop a goal. Versus like if you tell your family, your friends, like, I'm gonna lose 10 pounds in the next 3 months, or post it on Facebook or something, like I'm starting this journey.
Awesome, yeah, that's cool. I think some people really like that. I'm the opposite. I don't like sharing my goals with other people. Only some very close people, because it's, for me, I just like to do the work. And it might be a fear, I've been thinking a lot about this, it might be a fear that I have of, you know, sharing things. I've had problems with that in my life, so it might be that. Yeah. Well,
a lot of what you're talking about sort of reminded me a little bit of the forest metaphor. Have you heard that? Talking about sort of like if I ask you, you know, can you see the path to the other side of the forest, through the forest, right? You'd say no. You're standing there and there's trees and you have no idea how to get through the forest. But the idea is you just take one step, because you can always see your next step, right? You walk around the tree, one step at a time, and then eventually you get to the forest.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the first part of what Pearson said, having an accountability partner. So I always use the gym analogy, like when I have a trainer or I have a workout partner that I know is expecting me to be there. I'm somewhat in agreement with you regarding goals. In fact, I was sharing them, sharing it with people who are, who love me and who are positive, because oftentimes, not everybody has my best intentions, or I don't want to hear someone say you can't do that. And sometimes when you publicly do that, that happens. The other thing that I put here was, sorry. You said, going back to bad habits, for me, a lot of it's just the awareness, right? It's that success curve and being, aware of each decision that I make constantly.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's like you can't share big goals with small-minded people.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John?
I like the idea of, I have a tendency to write down like a long list of goals because I get creatively into it. I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do this. But if I simplify it and focus on like one or two things and do them really well, and say, this is like top priority, and I just pour a lot of energy into that, and notice I incrementally get things done better as opposed to getting overwhelmed with like just a long list.
No, I agree with you. And I think when it comes to goals, like it's so difficult because we're like, oh, you should have a balance of in your whole life. You should know how your business, your life, your like when you start thinking about that, you almost get crazy, right? But you got to start with something, and then you add on, and then you find like a routine that works for you. And life is seasons. Sometimes we focus maybe a little bit more on the career, and then we focus on something else, and it kind of it adds on, and we can do all of that, but sometimes it gets too much pressure when we try to do all at once.
One of the things is I've broken so many promises to myself, like millions, like so many. I mean, I'm sure everyone has. Like I'm gonna do it and I don't. I mean, how many countless times? And so like I've wrestled with this a lot in my life, like a lot. So much so where I just stopped writing goals because I just wasn't like. You know what I mean? So one of the things that I have now started realizing is just writing down the goal or saying the goal's not enough. So I have to repeat it to myself a lot of times, and so there's so I will write it maybe multiple times. I'll write it every morning. I will put it into a visualization. I'll see myself doing it. It's like door knocking. I have a big block with that. And being successful door knocking. So then instead of like I'm gonna get one seller lead today, it was I'm gonna enjoy my day door knocking. So I set a small goal for myself. I'm going to door knock for at least 30 minutes today, and I'm gonna have fun. And that's it. That's my goal. Right? Wasn't to achieve an objective. It was just to do the thing and to have a self-gratifying moment for it and say I did that. So visualization. And just repeating the goal to yourself, just however many times you need to, until you do it, and sometimes it's like, I didn't get it today, okay, well, I'm gonna do it tomorrow then, we got the next day, visualize myself doing it, write down the journal, do it again, and then I didn't do it, okay, so then I get the night before I go to bed, I'm gonna do it tomorrow, and I write in my journal, and I say, visualize it again, I just keep just hammering myself that way, and instead of, like, when I don't do it in a day, I'm not giving up, that's the thing. Because even though yesterday was a failure, today doesn't have to be.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And one thing that so I don't forget to say this, remember this, you are not your performance. I want to say this again, you are not your performance. Most of us believe that we are our performance. And believe me, I've done that route. The first time I became a junior national champion, I won by walkover, so because the other guy was disqualified, so I didn't do anything, and I came to the semifinal and I won. So in my mind, at that point, my mind was so limited that I was not my performance. I was not worthy of becoming a national champion. So for a full year, the only thing I thought about, I need to defend this title. I need to defend this title. And I did perform. I did defend the title, but I was not happy. I was not happy. So you can do the wrong thing and become very successful, but that's called performance. In my mind, it's not called success. Success and performance, in my mind, is very different. But there's also another way that I've seen the later years of my career, when I performed even better, I was relaxed. I was okay with not winning. And doesn't mean that I didn't go for it. It just meant that I knew I'm not a shitty person. I'm not worthless if I lose. And I know you guys are smiling because you felt the same way at some times in your life. And it's just a reminder, like, we're already worthy. It doesn't matter. So yeah, and I think this is probably also one of the solutions. Just never give up on yourself, and like, be lovingly, just like that old guy, like, say, I love you forever. Like, start working on that self-love and knowing that you're okay. And also, if you've broken a lot of promises to yourself, so you got to draw, what's the word? Draw a line in the sand and say no more. Like, now I'm gonna show up for myself, and I'm not gonna break promises to myself. And for me, that is part of what my core values, because I'm a martial artist. So a lot of people ask, oh, what belt do you have? Like, for me, when I wake up, like, if I have a black belt, I need to show up in life as a black belt. And that means, treating people well, taking care of the promises you've said, and things like that. Because otherwise, I'm just somebody that can punch somebody in the face. So I think these are the core values that if you don't have it already, start working on, and be true to yourself, because it feels really good. And of course, we're gonna stumble and fall sometimes, but we can get back up. So I'm gonna explain this, and first of all, I don't think this is the end all be all, and it might not work for some of you. The whole reason why I even started doing this was because I was getting married, and I didn't have enough time, and I didn't balance the things that was important to me. So I wanted to make a fun way of not focusing on the results, but also give myself rewards for the things that matter to me outside of work. That's why I started this whole process, and then I realized that I got really good results, and I also did things that make me feel really good about myself. So this is how it works. To have a good week, I want to achieve 100 points. And for me, that was, I knew I wanted to work out 5 times a week. And this, everything here on the example is, this is just what I made up. You can change this exactly how you want. Add things. You can give more points for things that you're not doing as much in your life. So for example, if you're not working out and you want to work out more, you can give more points for that. And you can, for example, if you want to sit more open house and you have none, you can give yourself more points, because that's gonna, your mind, if you're competitive, that's gonna be like, oh, I need to focus on this because I get more points. And everything here is basically, nothing here has anything to do with performance, except for a couple of things, which is open escrows, for example, and signed listings. Everything else is pretty much just based on things you do in order to get what you want in life. And for me, that's very helpful, because when I focus too much on, the results, I get sometimes discouraged, and it could be a negative discussion, or it could be, even if I'm doing very well, it could be focused on that I don't need to continue what I've been doing. So I love to focus on the things that I know eventually, as we spoke about, showing up for myself, there's no like secret sauce there. If you show up for yourself long enough and you're doing okay, you're gonna get the results you're looking for, right? And we are blessed if you talk about work, we're in a great environment where we have all this help. In personal life, I hope you have that as well. For example, I bought a gym card at Gold's Gym. That helped me tremendously because I see people working out that are very motivated, and just being in that environment helps me train a little bit harder. So anyway, for me, I wanted to do 100 points, and I knew one thing that is very important to me is training, taking care of myself. So I gave myself 5 points for workout, and I also decided I'm gonna do this 5 times a week. So even if I do it 6, I wouldn't give me more points. I make that decision to myself. And again, you're making the rules, but once you make the rules, as we spoke about, don't change the rules because it's easy. Meditation, I know I wanted to meditate. It's quite easy, so I gave myself 3 points for that. Reading, I read sometimes a lot, then I stop reading and things like that. But this actually helps me because I know if it's Sunday and I only have 90 points, I can read 50 pages. I'm gonna learn something. I'm still gonna, pat myself on the back and say like, hey, I received 100 points. And it's just gonna help my life. Watching sunset is something that I really enjoy. And I think a lot of us are just setting goals and measuring things that are business related, that we don't really like sometimes even. And we fill our life with all these tasks, and then with whatever time is left, we try to fill that with the things that we really love. And that needs to stop, I think, because it's never gonna be enough time. Like most of us here we want to go to the next level, right? In our life, in our career, which means we're gonna have less time. So if we don't take time for it now, and we don't make it one of our core values, for example, to go on a walk with my wife and watch the sunsets 4 times a week, it's not gonna happen. And if it doesn't happen now, it's not gonna happen in a year. And it's not gonna happen in 2 years. Same with trips, right? We're like, oh, I'm gonna go, we all heard our parents, like we're gonna go on this trip and that trip, and some of them happened, some of them didn't happen because we got caught up with life, but you can give yourself points for that. And that can help you to do these things that eventually makes you happy. It could be a listing. I'm giving myself more points for listing appointments, for example, because I want to have more listings. So this helps me to focus on that. If I write an offer, I give myself 5 points for that. Open house, 5 points. Day off, I should probably give myself more than 5 points for that. That's also something that it's great, right? You should take time to rest. Because we all know if we don't rest, we can't perform. And even if we perform, it goes back to performance and success are 2 different things in my mind. Like, you can perform. You can be an idiot and perform, right? But being successful and being here, like having a good, you still perform well, but you still take the time to do the things that makes you happy. And yeah, so those are a couple of things that I use, and I would like to take the time now for like 5 or 10 minutes to write down things. First, nothing job related. Just type down what type of things that you have been missing in your life that you really enjoy, and also give yourself, like, tell yourself how many points you're gonna get for that. The whole idea here, and it's going to be a little bit more difficult when you do the whole thing. 100 points should be equal to a successful week. And what is a successful week for you? That's the question. For me, I know what my goal is. I spent hours making a playbook for myself. This is what my playbook for this year. So I spend a lot of time doing this for myself. So once you spend time knowing what you want, then this is easy. If you want 24 listings this year, and you know that you need to go to 36 listing appointments in order to get 24 listings, then you know that a listing, if it's like you work 36 years out of the week, that should be 10 points, right? If I want, for example, I want to go on 7 appointments a week and I give myself 5 points for each, I know that's about 35% of the week, right? And I know if I do that, I'm going to achieve my business goals. Day off, I know that's important to me, and if I'm not doing that, which I've been stupid, sometimes not doing that, which means that I show up not as rested, not as happy, and I'm not in tune with my clients or my friends or the people I meet. So I'm doing something short term. I want a short term gain, but I go against my core values there. And those are the things to think about. Gabriella Anderson-Scheis is entering LA Coliseum, and as you can see, it doesn't look that good. There was new regulations for the marathon. There was only 5 pit stops where you can have water, and she missed the last one. It was a really hot day. I think it was 84 or 86 degrees. So she's entering the stadium and she's running, and what you can see on this picture here is actually, what do they call those people helping out? Secondary, or people that are helping out. And they're like looking at her, because if she's about to die, they gotta stop her from running. But she's waving them away, don't touch me, because she knows if they touch her, she can't finish. She's disqualified. They see that she has some poor dripping sweat, so she knows that she's still okay, she's still alive. So she's running. The last lap, I think, took her 5 or 6 minutes or something like that, for 4 minutes. And eventually, she finished on the 37th place of, I think, 38 runners or something, at 2 hours, 48 minutes and something seconds. Crazy enough, that time would have gotten her a gold medal in the first 4 Olympics of the men's marathon. Gabriella Anderson-Scheis, she didn't medal. She didn't even come in the top 10, but she did something that we all remember and that we all can be so proud of. And that is, she finished something that she promised herself that she was going to do, long after her motivation in that moment had disappeared. And I want to end today with that story. I think it's remarkable. I think for you in your life, I hope that you show up for yourself in the same way, because it's a great experience. And thank you for your time. I'll be here if you have any questions. I would love to answer them. I appreciate that you took of your valuable time to be here with me today. And that's all I got. Thank you. Any questions? Yep.
I want to say I've been doing this a little over a month, like I had said, and maybe 6 weeks or so. And one of the things that allowed me to do was give myself like more kudos, actually. So because I beat up on myself if I had a failed day, but then I look at my week and I go, oh, actually it was a successful week. You know, even though I failed in these 3 things that I said I was going to do, I didn't do, right, or whatever. Like it's like where business wasn't as good as it was, but I enriched my personal life. I was doing other healing and emotionally growing things and all that. And so it was really like, it helped me like actually like feel better about myself.
Yeah.
You know, not just, you know, and it was more in the failures. It was allowing myself the times to like be mediocre and it'd still be okay without like beating myself up and putting myself into a tailspin and then making yesterday's failures today's failures and then today's failures tomorrow's failures, right? Because and just going like, well, yesterday was a down day, but my week's still successful. And let's make it up today, like that's what it did for me.
That's awesome.
When you started this, did you, because now you say you track on Sunday, but when you started it, was it something that every time you did something during the day, you would?
Yeah, every time, end of the day, I would do it, yeah. And I think that's a good start because it gives you that like affirmation that you're doing something right. And it gives you also permission to let go of, the end result that you might not have received that day. For example, especially in business, like we have so many contacts, it's a contact sport. And if you don't get the results, you still have the results because you got the points. And that's how I see it when I go out and do, for example, prospecting. I'm successful showing up because this helps my week. So I already feel successful.
I think it's a good way to sort of celebrate the small stuff. Like I tell a lot of people who get into business that there's like infinite ways to fail in real estate. Like things can go wrong, they can be out of your control, lose a deal, lose a client. Like that stuff is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can't control it. So like I tell people they gotta celebrate the little things, like have a good appointment, write an offer. And this is kind of like the same idea, right?
Yeah.
Celebrating every little thing, kind of like what you're saying too, right? Mm-hmm. You might have some failures, you might have some misses, but you gotta pick yourself up and celebrate the good stuff that you've done in whatever way you want to celebrate.
Yeah.
Even if it's just to yourself, like, hey, I did a good thing today, that presentation went well or whatever it is.
That's awesome. I mean, it's all about, I forgot to say this, but we're doing all of this to lead a better life, to live a good life. And if we become a great person in the means that for what is important to us, the results, they come by itself. You don't even have to worry about that. Like if you're always showing up for yourself, you're good, right? At some point, everything you want, it's going to come to you. If you're really that focused on, like, for example, fitness, if you go to the gym every day, you're going to get results, even if you don't think of it.
Also, don't you think if you're happy in your life in some way, that you'll just attract more stuff to you?
Yeah.
Just like we all know, if you're desperate for business, you're not getting the business.
Yeah.
You're just not. You can smell it on you. If you're confident and you feel good about yourself, you're going to get business.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Do you reward yourself? Like, for instance, if you do, let's say, 100 points for a week or a month, do you say, okay, I'll go buy myself this, or I'll take this vacation? Have you ever?
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of, like, even in the points, I think you should have rewards in the points because that should give you should give yourself points for rewarding yourself. That's how I see it. So I totally agree, and that was, and I think that's hard sometimes when we get into, for example, now I was deciding for long if I'm going to take this vacation because I really can't go, right? Like all of us. But then I said, okay, why am I even doing all of this? Like, do I work to live or do I live to work? So, and I think those are the things that you're gonna get challenged. So yes, you should reward yourself, and all of us should probably get better with that, because if you have that reward system, that's awesome. Like, why shouldn't you do things that you like?
Well, it sounds like you said to me the other day, you want business schedule a vacation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone here experienced that at some point? Yeah. You schedule a vacation, and all of a sudden everybody comes out of the woodworks and wants to do deals, and you're like, God damn it. I mean, not God damn it, it's a good thing, but you know what I'm saying. Like a month ago I was doing nothing, now I'm going away, and everyone wants to do something. That's always the way it goes, though.
Cool. Any other questions, comments? Really? That's it. Awesome. Thanks again. I appreciate it.